Hello, true duelists. My name is Craig Fee, and welcome to the new card report. The video I make exclusively about Duelist Nexus this month, and all the other sets as well, but also this one is also Duelist Nexus, because it's the last of the cards from that set. Now, we won't be receiving them until July, and we'll be receiving some inevitable TCG exclusives as well as imports in this set by the time we get it here in TCG land as well. But for the time being, the last of the new cards debuting in the OCG have been revealed. From Rescue Ace cards to a number of one-ofs and everything else in between. So let's not delay any further. Let's continue on with this new card report. Starting first with the amazing Defender's last bit of support here in Dune, where do we find our R-Ace-ists? Because Pearly got some phenomenal support in this set, and Minkenko also received 2 cards in this set. So what does that leave our firefighting friends? Well, Rescue Ace Preventer is a new monster for the deck. A level 8 fire machine with 2800 attack and defense. This one can be summoned from your hand by banishing a Rescue Ace monster from your grave. And on field has a quick effect literal Book of Moon. Just target a monster the opponent controls and set it. But only if you control another Rescue Ace monster. And if it itself is sent to the grave, it can target a banished Rescue Ace monster that's not level 8 and special summon it out. Which is not bad by any, that is significantly better than I expected. That is a very nice, flexible boss monster that can recover and is easy to summon. That's a very, very solid card that I did not expect. I thought we'd get like a machine that just gives everything like 200 attack or something stupid. I was expecting very underwhelming from the Rescue Ace, but no, instead it turns out Konami decided to make them good. Eat your heart out, Minkenko players, because staying true to blue always wins. What else is there to be said? A quick effect Book of Moon is a very solid card. It's a staple to this day, depending on the format. And yeah, on the scale of Minkenko to Pearly, this line's a lot closer to Pearly, or Purely, or however I choose to say that deck's name. Isn't that fascinating? And better yet, this isn't the only card they've received, because they've also received a new quick play spell, whose name is apparently just Emergency. I'm sure declaring that at locals won't cause any trouble if you do with the same enunciation and volume with which I just did, but regardless, that's a very fitting name, because it's kind of like an emergency teleport for this deck. How funny is that? Always treated as a Rescue Ace card, this can summon out a Rescue Ace monster from your deck in defense position, but will then require you to tribute a Rescue Ace monster from your hand or field. But hey, you can also banish it from your grave during your main phase to set a Rescue Ace trap from your graveyard back onto your field. It's insane that it's solid. I mean, it could be a lot better. I feel like if this was just E-Telly and not requiring a tribute, it'd maybe be, you know, more playable. Not that it is unplayable at its current state. The deck needs Hydrant from what I understand, or very much wants Hydrant, so having access to Hydrant through a quick play spell and 3 copies of it makes it much better. I just wish you didn't have to tribute something. But hey, maybe the thing you tribute can be banished to summon out the Blue Boy, in which case that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Overall, this is 2 very, very solid pieces of support that I'm starting to see some actual hype for. From the community's own Lithium 2300, God's gift to Yugi tubing, and even more competitively central community members such as the one and only Jeff Jones. Now, that's not to say that this is about to be insanely good tier 1 all of a sudden. I'm just saying there is a bit of focus on this deck and it's getting interesting. So maybe you want to pick up your cores for cheap now before those skyrocket in price too. Shoutouts to Pearlies. Can't mention Amazing Defenders without those damn Eevee fuckers. I don't know what to tell you. And now on to our more miscellaneous cards. The one-offs. Little Opposition is a normal trap that chooses 2 unoccupied main monster zones in the same column, and then will let both you and your opponent summon a level 2 or lower monster to that zone from your decks. That's right, folks. Sprite is still getting support. Now, by the time they're playing this card, the deck will be significantly weaker than it is currently, but technically it works with Sprite, so What else is there to say? I don't know. It's like emergency glow-up bulb for you, but in trap card form. And it doesn't matter because this is a card that will let the opponent plus, and that always sucks in some manner. I hate giving my opponent free things. This is the card game of free things. Do you have the cards? Play them. The fuck is a cost system? We only know discards. All right? That's the whole point, the whole appeal of Yu-Gi-Oh to me, and yet now I'm just giving it to the opponent for free? Yucky, gross. I don't like that. But hey, it's got Sforce lore on the card art. Whoa, that's neat, right? Is that a selling point for you? Sure hope so, because you're probably not going to play it in an actual duel. Animal Candle. I definitely did not initially read that as Animal Candle. Is the cutest card to come out of this set, I think, or is very much in contention for that title. It's a level 4 Pyro Tuner with 1700 attack and 0 defense. As to what this little cutie does, well, if it's added from deck to hand except by drawing it, it can summon itself from hand, and once per chain, up to thrice per turn, if a monster is sent to your graveyard, you can increase or decrease this card's level by 1. That is adorable. The biggest tragedy is that I don't know what really searches it from the deck. Whatever does probably isn't worth playing. Like, obviously the new Fire Channeler Haita is very much usable to get this card out. I can fully see that synergy, don't get me wrong. I more mean to like actively add from deck to hand with like a spell. There's no Pyro Rhoda, you know? Not yet anyways. So it's just really fucking cute is all I can say about it. And praise Xenu for 2023 because we finally got pyro looking monsters in a core set that are actually pyros. Shoutouts to the one we got in Photon Hypernova that was Dark World support. Truly, this is the year of pain. And let's keep the cute train on moving because Click and Echo is fucking adorable too. These two water visible sea serpents, because dolphins aren't fish, have 300 attack and 2100 defense. They can also not be used for the summon of a fusion, synchro, or Xyz monster, nor can they be tributed while they're face up. But if you use them as link material, they will summon themselves to the opponent's field, and then when summoned through that effect, it will force the player that controls it to keep their entire hand revealed. Oh, that's like great for the cute binder, and I don't know how much else. This could very well be a thing to play in Sprite. You could summon this out with Gigantic Sprite, link off for Sprint, and then see the opponent's entire hand and know what you have to do. That is a very, very solid play in and of itself. Whether or not that's going to be doable by the time we get this card is another debate. A ban list will be here sooner or later as we approach National Season. But outside of that play, I really like the idea of two players just unanimously agreeing to keep linking it off and trading it back and forth just to keep looking at each other's hands. That's a really funny, novel idea to me, and also that they're just really fucking cute dolphins. Amazing. 12 out of 10 art, 2 out of 10 effect because it either sucks or it's absolutely degenerate, and the absolute peak of Yu-Gi-Oh! What more need be said? Moving on from card art that is cute to more neat and, might I say, downright pretty, if you were to ask me, we've got Iruka the Magic Star. Probably not how I meant to say that name, but there's no going back. Time is the enemy. This level 4 wind attribute beast type monster has 1500 attack and 400 defense and 2 effects. If a monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard, and then summon that removed monster if it's either face up in your banish pile or graveyard. And if it isn't there, you can instead banish this monster. And if it is special summoned, it will gain 1500 attack until the end of the turn. Did it need a limit for how long it would get the attack gain? Not in 99.9% of situations, no. But also, in about 99.9% of situations, this isn't my first choice to be summoning with its effect anyways. Also in 99.9% of situations, I'm not playing it at all. Feels to me like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Equivalent of a gotcha moment from a Reddit user or a Twitterer, where they bring back the monster and go like, aha, no one expected this sneaky maneuver. No one expected this witty banter. And then it's like, cool. Access code pop again. Whoa, crazy. Do I feel particularly underwhelmed by it? Yeah, a little bit. I don't know what deck really has a home for this card, but I do like the art, and it's not a terrible effect. It's just, you know, archetypal synergy is pretty damn important in this game. Sucks to suck. Moving on, we now get an Earth monster, and what is just a pure coincidence if you're the type to believe in coincidences. Pod of Greed, named as such because we already have both a pot and a jar of greed already. So what do you call this? Probably something else by the time we get it here proper in TCG land, but the good folks who have translated it have dubbed it Pod of Greed for the time being. A level 3 Earth Rock Flip monster with 700 attack and 800 defense, whose effect on being flip face up applies in sequence. That's right, first it will excavate cards from your deck equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, then add one among them to your hand before sending the rest to the graveyard. Then it also sends monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard equal to the number of monsters summoned from the extra deck that your opponent controls. As is often the case with pack filler cards, I'm left wondering what deck is meant to play this. Is this like crawler support or something absurd? Really, what's insane most about this is that it's designed to be a flip monster to go second with. It includes the opponent having extra deck monsters in its effect. That means they need to have done things before it can fully do what it wants to be doing. That's an insane level of cope to expect for this card to not only resolve, but to be undisturbed as your opponent builds your board in the modern day, no? Especially because, like, what could the opponent possibly not see coming from this if not like Entis or Herald of the Arclight search shenanigans? When does this ever go off if they've already got an extra deck board? I'm just wondering. I can see why greed is in the name now that I'm looking at it more, because that's a fucking greedy thing to attempt in any sense of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Also in this set, what I think is the only Albaz lore related card, maybe, or the last one we're getting, that's a safe thing to say, because it at least has Ice Jades on it. Eternal Ice Grave can only activate during the main phase if your opponent uses a monster effect to remove a monster or monsters from your field that isn't by destruction. But if they do that, you can do one of two things. Either end the main phase then and there, or force the opponent to skip their next main phase one. My initial thoughts were that it's neat that it's not a trap card, since it feels very much like it's to be played as a trap card. But being a quick play spell, of course, means that it can make it more versatile, because if they summon Nightmare Unicorn with IP Masquerade on your turn, you can force them to skip their next main phase. Just give it more, you know, versatility in that regard. Most notably is, of course, the fact that this doesn't really do a whole lot by itself, does it? It literally needs the opponent's interaction. This feels like the strongest possible effect revealed thus far, and maybe the best one I'll cover in this video, but it's still only strong because of what it can do and not what it does, if you follow what I am saying. Okay? Needing the opponent to do things for me to fully stop their turn, not ideal. Not when things like solemn cards exist or other extra deck negates. You need to let them get to a point where they're picking apart your board before you can try and stop them. My guess is that this is at best a cheeky tech in an odd build, but much like Witch's Strike before it, it's way too specific to truly be good. And now for something completely different, Misty Sisters from the Pokemon anime. So that's where they went, to a different fucking game. Aqua Round is a normal spell that banishes a monster from your hand so that in your next standby phase, you can add up to 2 copies of that same banished monster, or the same named banished monster, from your deck to your hand. The catch is that if you activate this while your opponent controls no cards, you can't activate the cards or effects of cards with the same original name as the original name banished for the rest of the turn. That's a neat way to make it better going second, or maybe more accurately, completely worthless going first. My initial thoughts were that maybe this is a decent like Thunder Dragon tech or something, a Gold Sark alternative of sorts to banish a card in your hand. So it's not Gold Sark at all, because Gold Sark gets from the deck, but you get what I'm saying here, I think. A way to banish cards in your hand to proc banish effects. The problem is that I don't know many decks that really want to go -2 to search 2 of the same thing on the next turn, because ultimately that's what this is, especially going first if the opponent controls no cards. You're just whittling your hand size down to 3 when you could instead play the monster you've banished and maybe a different better card in place of this one. Just things to consider. So I guess this is really about as useful as Misty's sisters were in the Pokemon anime. That is to say, not at all. Kira Band is up next, a continuous trap that I already know has way too many people horny for it and making the least inspired jokes since I made that trap trick short. This is a trap monster that can only be summoned if 10 or more cards and or effects have been used this turn, summoning itself as a level 10 Dark Cybers with 3000 attack and defense. But it will set itself again during the end phase, and by the I mean your end phase. As to why you'd want to summon a 3k Cybers Dark Trap monster? Well, that's because if it's in your monster zone and your opponent activates a card or effect, you can quick effect destroy as many cards as the opponent controls as possible, and it will then set itself back into your spell and trap zone. Speaking of Witch's Strike, that is a hell of an effect. It's just a shame we aren't really in tier limit format anymore, because that would make this way easier to use back when, you know, activating a single effect somehow got you to like Chainlink 12 or whatever. As it stands, it's a bit more challenging in a present meta because you need to, you know, let your opponent do things or do a whole hell of a lot of things to stop your opponent. And if you're stopping your opponent outright by activating card effects, this is icing on the cake. Or if you've let them get too far, now you're in trouble. Maybe this doesn't even go off. It's also a trap, meaning that you're using it on turn 2 or 3. And hey, whoops, any spell and trap destruction at all before that 10 card / effect count makes this useless. Let's not pretend that making Nightmare Phoenix to pop back row is an unheard of thing to be doing. It's another case, I think, of a card that is absolutely insane if it goes off, but it's probably not going to go off nearly often enough to really see play. Like Witch's Strike. But hey, it's okay, because Anime Girl's holding a sword. That's more than enough for some of you to love it regardless. And last up from Dune and the OCG, Singing Cuckoo. Look at that. Fucking perfect. Perfect. Down to the last minute details, or whatever the hell it is Homelander says in those memes I keep seeing. This adorably stressed out and freaking the fuck out little bird is a level 3 fire-winged beast and has 800 attack and 1000 defense. It also, during your main phase, can activate one of 3 effects. It will either destroy itself to draw you a card, discard a card and then draw you a card, or draw you 1 card but during the end phase. So no matter what you're doing, you're drawing a card. Just a matter of when you want it and how. Dark World could play it to keep their effects going because it discards by card effect. And they shouldn't. They should not play it, but maybe they just want a really cute monster in the main deck, in which case this crying little schmuck fits the bill pretty well. Certainly, there are worse things they could be playing. If it were a level 2, this would potentially be a neat sprite tech, I suppose. But as it is, I don't really know what deck has a home for it. Maybe like Manadium likes when it blows itself up to draw a card, and then they can like chain off that. I don't know. There are things that activate when a card is destroyed, and then this draws you it. I just don't know what possibly would want this specifically. Maybe Tri-Brigade. Maybe they really, really want to play it. Look, man, I don't know. I do not know. I don't think this card is worth playing in any practical sense. It is simply one of countless cards that I want to own physically because I think the artwork on it is cute. Does anything else need to be said? Okay? This little dude is stressing. And I'm stressing that we move on to today's sponsor. Here's something you don't need to stress about. It's the LIFD magnetic display. The best way to support the channel currently, and a great and safe way to show off the Singing Cuckoo. Cause fuck it, that's what I might do. Put a little Singing Cuckoo in a display on my desk and look at it to inspire me to, I don't know, look at cute shit, like look at it and look. I don't know. I also don't know how to segue out of this into mentioning that you could use my promo code to get 50% off your purchase, which can be applied automatically by clicking the link in the description. Thanks to LIFD for the support as always, and thank you for watching. And so that wraps it up for the OCG cards of Dune, Duelist Nexus. As I mentioned, that is a July 27th release here in TCG land. Very end of July. It might not be the 27th specifically, but you get my point. Late July is when we'll be getting these cards, along with anything else that the TCG seems fit to give us. Maybe a chip archetype. Lord knows I'd be excited. Regardless, you can go ahead and subscribe to Yugioh Strats, because that's right, folks. There's going to be a new update coming out this week. There's going to be another new card report for the last of SEAC, and you're gonna impress your smoking Italian wife if you subscribe. You're gonna do that. So do that. Subscribe to Yugioh Strats. Impress your smoking Italian wife, and become a true duelist.